I think it's past 4:30. We can start admitting. We can start admitting.
A very warm good evening to all the participants who have joined us. Thank you. We are waiting for all the participants to join in and settle. So please allow us a few minutes. In the meantime, please take your time and settle in. We request all of you to turn on the video if it is comfortable, and the guidelines could be seen on the screen. All the participants who have joined us, thank you. We are waiting for all the participants. I believe we can start now. Everybody has joined and settled in. So I will quickly start with the guidelines. Participants are requested to keep their videos on. Participants shall be put on mute by default, and they can direct their questions on the host through the chat option. With that, welcome to Women in Management Club of IIM Bangalore's 7th edition of Women Leadership Summit. This summit is an opportunity to reflect on how we all can view and shape our success from examples set by dynamic industry leaders. Our silver lining is to provide the motivation and insights to propel you forward and upward to success on your own terms. Last year's Women Leadership Summit was focused on how to balance acts during the pandemic and how to waver through. Today, we are more hopeful about the future. The theme for this year's Women Leadership Summit, Reimagining a New Generation, is aimed to promote discussion on how we can redesign and reimagine a future generation by setting a frame of reference from our present actions in moving one step closer towards gender parity. Each of the speakers are personally invested in working towards this cause, and therefore, we believe will provide the audience with a holistic view and some actionable points to take away. Let me now quickly introduce you to all the speakers. We have Susan Thomas with us, also Nithya Balasubramanian, and Taniya and Sujata Biswas. Let me now quickly introduce you to the moderator of today's panel discussion, Professor Deepti Ganapathy. Professor Ganapathy is a faculty at IIM Bangalore in the area of managerial communication. She has worked in print, broadcast, and digital journalism for more than a decade. Her interests and work of area spans from education to journalism to climate change and much beyond that. Ma'am, we are absolutely fortunate for having you as the moderator today. I request you to take over the spotlight and steer the session through.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mansi. Reimagining the New Generation, a panel discussion where we try to reimagine a future generation by setting a frame of reference from our present actions in moving one step closer towards gender parity. Today, we have issues that confront us, which we have little control over. Climate change, pandemics, a world where the socio-economic gap widens year by year, and a world where diversity and inclusion are ideals that stand verily on shoulders of those who abide by them. This year, the 7th edition of the Women Leadership Summit at IIM Bangalore dares to ask these questions again and again to empower young women leaders with the answers they need to know, to make better decisions and deal with situations that they will encounter as they progress into the world. What does the future hold? Generations of women have, in their way for us, paved the path to be here, to stand up with that voice of reason for ourselves and for those without a voice. Health statistics tell us that women lead a longer life than men. Hence, financial independence, better living amenities, and the ecosystem that allows a woman to stay well into her twilight years, often alone with little or no family support, are issues that confront us. Through this panel discussion, we hope to peel through these questions layer by layer and hope that our audience will be able to delve deeper into this discussion with a multitude of layers that will emerge. I, Deepti Ganapathy, faculty at IIM Bangalore, welcome all of you to this thought-provoking panel this evening with the stellar panelists we have with us today. I will first start by inviting each panelist to come forward and give their opening remarks about the theme, after which we will include all the panelists in a very nice deliberation. And then we will take questions from our young audience. So I urge the audience to keep putting in their questions on the chat window, and we will keep a track of it and ask the questions whenever we find it relevant to that conversation. I will now start by inviting Susan Thomas, who's the Director, National Institute of Fashion Technology, Bangalore. An IRS officer, she worked with the Income Tax Department in Ministry of Finance for 17 years before moving on deputation to the Ministry of Textiles. A TEDx speaker, she was recently ranked by She the People TV in their list of 40 under 40 for her content on Instagram, which is shattering gender myths and stereotypes. Susan, I now hand over the screen to you and invite you to make your opening remarks.
Thank you, Deepti. So it's such a pleasure, and thanks first to IIM Bangalore for giving us this platform to deliberate and to put our heads together and chartering a roadmap for the youngsters, especially women, to sort of cruise through their journeys. Having said that, I will speak from two vantage points. One, having been a woman in the public sector and who has led small teams and is still leading teams at her office space. And the second vantage point as the director of an educational institution. So as having a first-hand view of teenagers, the teen queens, so to speak. And NIFT is a place which is 80 to 90% students are women, are faculty, 80 to 90% are women, and so also our non-teaching staff. So definitely, it is a very, very gender positive space. So three things that are uppermost in my mind, which I would love to deliberate upon with the co-panelists as well. One, the new generation, unlike us, have been raised on a multi-narrative rather than a mono narrative. We were taught and we were told to have a career, to be ambitious, but also be, a homemaker, or and to aspire for a good marriage and to have children. And so it was a generation which was asked to have it all, and I do the famous finger quote, to have it all. But this generation, I feel that, there is a multi-narrative wherein it is okay if you do not want to get married, if you do not want to have children, if you do not want to have career, and it is all okay so long as it agrees with you and it offers you a space to develop yourself at your pace, and in the area and in the focus group that you want to. And so the focus light then becomes the self, and to set the pace that you want to, rather than what the society would dictate to you. And so it's quite okay as a woman not to have it all as well. That is one. Second, this generation is also truly meta in all its sense. I could be sitting in Bengaluru, but I'm sure this this group of panelists, as well as the speakers, are also joining in from different parts of the world, different parts of the country. So it's well nigh possible for you to be present at different places at different time zones. To be everywhere if you so choose, and to be nowhere at the same time. So that spatial and that time, the framework that we are talking about, it's hugely empowering, but it's also, it does take its toll as well. So, as a generation, I think, this is something that that the youth will have to sort of negotiate more. Third, this is also a generation which has been, taught that if there is a woman who is out there doing and killing it and hustling it and, getting it, she is not your competitor. She's just pointing out that, you can do it too. So, and that's hugely an empowering thought, because, it's the opportunities are no longer limited. Everybody has, can have a go at whatever he or she wants. So these are some of my preliminary thoughts, Deepti, that I wanted to put out there, and over to you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Susan, for that. And we'll come back to what you said, as we proceed. I now invite Nithya Balasubramanian, who is the director at AB Bernstein. She's also an alumni of IIM Bangalore and has worked with CIPLA and McKinsey. She has been featured on the Economic Times coveted 40 under 40 list. Nithya, we are very happy to have you here as an alumni of IIM Bangalore as well, and it's over to you now.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and it's always a pleasure to talk to people from IIM Bangalore. I just wish it were in person. Hopefully, the next edition is something that we can come and meet you all in person as well. So I just wanted to reflect a bit on what Susan said, and I wanted to add on to that as well. So to Susan's point around that this is a generation where our parents have actually done a fabulous job. They raised very ambitious young women who want to have it all. However, I think one thing they probably didn't do as well was to tell their son as well that they need to expect changes at home. In the way they behave, in the way they share the burden. I think the reason I'm bringing this up is I think change starts from home. Change starts from within. So therefore, I think as sisters, as mothers of sons and daughters, I think the burden therefore falls on us to make sure that the next generation actually understands that women are seeking equal opportunity, and therefore you actually position yourself so as to allow that to happen, right? So I would say that at least from my own perspective, I have a son, I have a daughter, and I'm going to try and make sure that my son understands that there is equal opportunity for everybody, and it's not just my daughter. I'm asking her to be more ambitious, right? And I think the more women who start doing that, I think it's far better for the society. The second point I wanted to make was from a corporate perspective, right? I think we have seen a lot of change happen. We have seen diversity as a topic become far more mainstream. There are companies really thinking hard about how to improve diversity. And we have seen change happen at least at the entry level, right? So we have seen companies consciously trying to make sure that we want to hire more women. But I think where we still haven't seen much change is actually in the upper echelons of management. I'm talking about senior management roles, or CEO roles, etc. I think that's and I to me that change happening at that level is very, very important. So, right? So think about it this way: you've got the upper echelons is completely filled with men, and they are the ones who are designing the rules of the game, right? So if the rules of the game are designed by the men, then the men are more likely to win. So therefore, I think this is quite. I got muted. I don't know where you guys lost me. I was saying that the upper echelons is filled with men, and therefore the rules of the game are being designed by men, which means it's very difficult, therefore, for a woman to actually win, right? Because the rules are just not customized to reflect your challenges, and therefore, I think a little bit of affirmative action. I didn't want to use the word, but I think that is important. It is important that corporates consciously inject women in senior positions of leadership, and that to me is very important for change to happen. It's not enough if you have enough women talent who are entering the workforce. We need women in positions of influence. We need women in position of power for actual change to happen. Or we could wait. We could wait another generation for these women at the entry level to eventually reach senior management roles. But I don't think I'm not patient enough, right? I think, and I can imagine that our listeners and audience today are not patient enough. So I think one important thing, therefore, is for corporates to take cognizance of this fact and start thinking about how to inject more women talent at the senior levels of management. So I'll pause there and, of course, look forward to more discussion. Ms. Deepti, you're on mute here.
Thank you, Nithya, for that. You brought in a very, much needed organization perspective there, and we will have a lot more questions, I'm sure, from our young viewers on that, and we will come back to you sooner. I now invite Taniya Biswas, the co-founder of Sujata. Taniya was the winner of the Times She Unlimited Entrepreneur Award 2019 and recognized as the Best Woman Entrepreneur of 2019 by She the People. Taniya, along with her sister Sujata, also runs her own podcast where she talks about her passion for entrepreneurship and her love for the simple joys of life. So Taniya, it's over to you now, and then I will introduce Sujata and also invite her.
Hello, hi everyone. Very glad to be here, and this topic is so close to all our hearts that we keep talking about it, sometimes rant about it, and it so happens that it stays to just the rants, and we don't know what next. What should we do to bring about the change and see even a small change happen in the larger society? We have faced and seen that gender parity doesn't come so easily, and be it in schools, colleges, or corporate world, now in the company, and when you meet vendors, when you meet partners, it always comes in. And I think the new generation or the youth, they need to learn, or we need to tell them that any roles they pick in life, be it a professional role or anything they do personally, should not be gender specific. I think we need to keep talking about it constantly so that it is wired in their minds that anything that they pick should be what they really want to do in life and what they believe in that they should do. It should not be that men are supposed to be astronauts or women are supposed to stay at home and cook. It can be anything. They can pick anything they want to. Even in the company, we keep talking about gender parity a lot. We have a lot of measures. I think probably we'll speak about it sometime later. But I totally agree to what Susan and Nithya have talked about. So I'm not touching those points now. But it'll take hundreds of years to bring about this change. But we should keep talking about it and keep implementing in processes wherever we can to bring about this change.
Right. Thank you, Taniya, for that. And now I invite Sujata. Sujata, who has co-founded the venture Suta along with her sister Taniya. Suta is a 16,000 plus weaver, a strong association, and Sujata has been recognized by the Time She Unlimited Entrepreneur Award 2019, the Best Women Entrepreneur Award of 2019 by She the People, and the She Maker Evangelist Startup Award in 2021, as well as the iDivas 50 Most Beautiful Women and Impact Creators in Handcrafted Fashion, as well as the ET Inspiring Women Awards to 2021. Sujata, it's over to you.
Hi. I'll just jump into the discussion. I'm just was so eager to start talking about it. I think something that we all need to understand, that women are different, right? Men are different, women are different, people from other gender, every gender, they're different. Just accepting that will also help us, understand what's happening. There are a lot of biases that is already there. We are not fighting each other, or there's no fight between intergender or intragender. It's also with the biases. It's not just women fighting, also men fight, right? Because people expect that men are the breadwinner of the family, and certain roles are not for men, and these things are so ingrained somehow. There are so many studies, I'm sure, not quoting the numbers, but men don't want women bosses and women don't want women bosses, and there are so many researches happen and being talked about. I think what we need to understand is the word choice. By that, I mean, if a girl doesn't want to work and doesn't want to break a glass ceiling, that's fine. That choice sometimes is not there, because what is my family going to say? Or what if I have passed out of IIFT? What are my batchmates doing? Can I just sit at home and raise my kids? So there are a lot of these kind of taboo, which is more, pushes people to do things that they don't want to do. And apart from that, I think because of the biases, for similar role, same caliber people get different pay. That is such a wrong thing, right? I think that's what we are all fighting for. I think we should all fight for that. Men, women should just come together, understand that we are different physically, emotionally. We all bring different things to the table. So if there's a role up for grab and you are qualified enough, irrespective of the gender, you should get paid for that role, and not looking at your gender and gender that is getting decided. So yeah, I think as Taniya said, we can just, I think all of us will rant about it. There's so much to talk about it, never ending discussions. But we just have to understand we are all fighting biases and not another gender, not a person. It's something that's already existing that we have to stop. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sujata, for that. And I think I'll take a cue from what you said towards the end about keeping on having these discussions, but to also kind of internalize it, right? So how do we become more aware about our capability to go to the negotiation table when we are having that job interview? How do we become more aware of our strengths and demand the kind of salaries or the kind of paychecks that we think we need to get, but we are again having those stereotypes in our mind. We shouldn't be coming across as pushy. We shouldn't be coming across as someone who is out there to, talk so boldly about money, or, talk so boldly about their capabilities. So there are these biases that creep in when it comes to that talk about salary, about the paycheck, and about, getting that right compensation. But for that to get shattered, the women have to think about internalizing it, to think about saying, yes, I deserve it, because the same person who passed out of the same college as me, because he's a man and because he is upfront about saying these things and he has no qualms about projecting his strengths, he's able to get much more than what I'm asking for. So how does one think about internalizing it, either through observation, seeing what's happening around meeting the right mentors, feeding in the right thoughts through, whatever you're reading, whatever you're seeing. How can we build or create that ecosystem around us where we are telling these young women, or we are making it, very obvious to them that they deserve it and they should therefore ask for it. So anybody can take this question, and then we can have everyone answering it. So yeah. Yes, Nithya, go ahead.
So I'll give you a personal example. So I went through something similar. So this was one of my first projects at McKinsey, young associate. There was another gentleman who was also an associate at the same level. We had an EM who was a woman, right? So we had this feedback conversation, which happens once every month or so. So I went in. So the conversation usually is you talk about your reflections of the study. What do you think about yourself, your strengths and weaknesses? And then, of course, she tells you about what she does. So I went in, I sat down and I said, these are the two things that I think I probably didn't do well. A, B, C, D things I could have done better. And here's what I think, here are a few things that I think I've done well. So I finished the conversation. She had the same conversation with the other associate, the man who was on the team. And then she came back. She said she wanted to talk to me again. So she called me back in and she said, I spoke to the other associate on the team, and he spent 70% of the conversation talking about all the fabulous things he's done. And he spent 5 minutes talking about what he thought were a couple of things. And you did the exact opposite, right? I spent 70% of the conversation talking about what is it that I didn't do well. And that was actually very telling for me, right? So as a woman and as an associate, I didn't know that there was another way to have this conversation, right? So this is how I have been taught. I've been taught all my life to actually, unfortunately, magnify your deficiencies and not really your strengths. So to your point, Ms. Deepti, I think a lot can change. I think it's important to have mentors. And I think it's very important to have mentors who are men. And that kind of brings you the difference in perspective, the way you also tend to understand. One, of course, they're supportive, they can sponsor your career growth, etc. But you also get the man's perspective of how they think about things, right? So the fact that a lot of women choose not to lean in for various reasons, you understand when you try to put yourself in the mentor's perspective and ask him about how would you have reacted in a particular situation, then you try and understand what the man's view is, right? And I would say that for all young aspiring women who want to have great careers, please make it a point to find as many mentors as you can, and make your mentor group diverse by making sure you have lot many more. If anything, have more men in your mentor group than women. And when choosing men as mentors, try and find somebody who has a daughter. They tend to appreciate the challenges of women far more than anybody else out there. So it's actually very, very counterintuitive. You would imagine that if a man has a working woman, then maybe he appreciates this better. I actually found that if he has a daughter, he tends to appreciate it far better than even if he has a working wife. Right? So just try and find as many mentors as you can. They'll be very supportive to you.
Yes, go ahead, Sujata.
I'm just adding something to Nithya's point. I think as women, it's I think not just taught. I think we are naturally like that. I think we first think about what all we could have done better and not talk about what we have done good. We just expect that people would see. And I think naturally we are more caring, more compassionate. We are more thinking about making the place better by talking good and stuff. We are, I think, naturally like that. So I somehow also feel that when we grow, as in because all of us are in a position of power, and all the people listening here are all going to be in the position of power, guys. You are all powerful people. Imagine when you go at a place, don't get scared to not ask questions or talk about things. So what happens is when something wrong happens to me, I would think, oh my God, it just, maybe let's say I didn't get the promotion. I was, oh my God, it just happened to me. Oh my God, maybe, I'm not good or whatever. I just think a lot of things, right? Maybe I could have answered it better or something like that. But apart from that, think that, okay, it could be that a lot more people who are also going through the same thing, could be a man, another girl who's going through the same thing, talking about it, understanding where you come from, because when you all go and become CEOs and, directors in the company, you understand that the women who would be answering like that could be that because a woman also is behaviorally like that, probably, So when we hire, we are on the other side of the table, right? Because we're entrepreneurs and we have a team of 150 people here. So that's what we try to understand. Our office is painted with the pride colors because we are inclusive. We talk about it. Everybody, all the people in our company know that, when we say that I have a stomach cramp, I say I'm menstruating, and I'm not saying, shh, like, oh my God, I'm just taking leave.
Yeah, it's not like that day of the month. It's not, the term used is different. I think that women bosses, when they go places, they will make the changes happen. And of course, like Nithya said, having mentors, I think both men and women equally or whoever is going to guide you because they have risen to a place, however, and because it's all struggles you face, any gender. But
unequal struggles almost,
Yeah.
right? But except for the few challenges with women in general face. So I think having a lot different kind of mentors help, but also being very empathetic and understanding when you grow, make sure you hold everybody's hand and pull them up as well.
Right. Susan, you want to go next?
Yeah, so just to add on to what Nithya was saying, that, we as women tend to sort of focus on our shortcomings rather than our achievements. I have a slightly different take on that, because I also think that, it has something to do with the Asian culture, cultural upbringing that we have. And that works equally for men as well. I went to a brilliant cohort in Oxford to do my master's in public policy. And I can definitely tell you that, over 55 countries, students, and some of my classmates from India were kick-ass guys who definitely did hesitate to talk about it. And it was not about man and woman, and it was more about the Asian culture upbringing. And I say this because as kids, we are raised to say that, even if you know 10, just show 5 out there, sort of thing. So, we are always reticent to sort of, to embrace our achievements or embrace our talent or whatever it is. So that's one thing. Second, we don't talk about struggles as often. I mean, even when women scale up and, shatter glass ceilings and, reach, as Nithya was saying, that there are very, very few women in the upper echelons. And so it becomes a celebratory thing. And so, you talk about, you concentrate on, and invariably, if you look at the interviews, that people have with these successful women, it's about how she was able to balance a family with her career. It's never about the career struggles that she had, or it's never about finding the funding, never about getting the admission, or into that elite college or what have you. So so it becomes important then that the narrative that we build as women, as successful women as well. I mean, so the buck then, the ball then I kick on to the senior women's courts. That we have to make noise and make them and tell more about the struggles as far as a career woman is concerned. And it's not always about balancing a family sort of struggle, but also the very pertinent question that you raised about how to negotiate on a working table, or how to ask for your maternity leave, how to sort of ask for a paid maternity leave beyond 3 months, beyond 4 months, into 6 months, and so on and so forth. I think a consciousness that says that these are the things that I have been raised with, and these are the things that I need to overcome. And then what Nithya said about having a wide basket of mentors probably will help us get there.
Yeah, I kind of was, just looking at the screen and I was liking the, the variation. Like, so there is Nithya from the private sector, then there is Susan who was, who comes from the government, and now she's in the academic sector. And then there's Taniya and Sujata who are entrepreneurs, right? Yeah. So, but no matter what, whether it is so rigid or it is such an open environment, or it is like a completely lateral kind of a communication environment that entrepreneurs bring into their workspaces, these issues about women have transcended all these. I feel like it doesn't matter which sector you are or where you come from, these issues remain. So why do you think in spite of all that we have achieved, in spite of making so much of progress, why do you think these issues remain? Is it because we have not had enough representation? Is it because we've not had enough conversations about this? Or is it because once even women, when they get get into those higher, rungs in the organization, they kind of forget to champion the causes that they were so passionate about, and they get busy with the nitty-gritty of running an organization. So as we deliberate upon this, I'm just wondering, why is it that we are still talking about these things, at this stage too? And the pandemic has also kind of, taken us a bit back again, because we are again back to that struggle of balancing everything from home. How much ever, we had tried to put the kids in a childcare and sort out everything and go out into the world. Again, the pandemic has pushed us back a step, and women are struggling to kind of manage both with the onset of this work from home and things like that, while pushing forward. So what do you think are the reasons that come into your mind as we go talking about this, that these issues continue to remain?
I think, Deepti, first up, we have a huge historical baggage, we are trying to set right the historical wrongs of many centuries within the past 100, 200 years or so, or not even that much, because if you look at suffragettes, if you look at the feminist movement, it's modern world history. It's not even, anywhere in between. So it's what shall we say? It's our brains have been wired to think in a certain way, our DNAs, all sorts of things. And as Nithya brilliantly put it, the rules have been framed for men to succeed, and the rules have been framed for. Starting from Industrial Revolution in Europe, in medieval Europe, the factory system in itself was designed for men to go out and work and women to sort of, sit home and spin or weave or what have you. So the rules, the laws, they were all, sort of engineered to that. So it's but natural that the economy should influence the political and the legal systems as well. So that's a kind of, what shall we say? That's a kind of legacy issue that we are fighting, and if you look at it, it's not even 100 years since Europe allowed women to vote, or America allowed women to vote, and things like that. So it's fascinating, and America still doesn't have a paid maternity leave policy to its working women. So what are we really talking about? So that plus I think it takes a lot to sort of overcome the structures as it, and then with the structure sometimes it has to be forced, which is why I for one, I'm a strong believer that if rather than waiting for everybody to change minds, if we need to impose something as a welfare measure by way of a law, we should. So if we had to sort of abolish or abolish sati, or give legal sanction to widow remarriage, or raise the age of marriage to women, maternity, or even affirmative action, I'm all for it, because you cannot wait until everybody comes onto the same page and let the women pass through. And also, at a certain point of time, we tend to get a little iffy about talking about affirmative action, but that again, it's maybe you do not need it, or, some X doesn't need it, or Y doesn't need it, but it is largely a collective women's issue. And that has to transcend the personal. And become a collective sort of issue, and that's when I think we will, if not through democratic means, then by legally bulldozing through. I'm for it.
I'm totally with Susan on that. I think unless you mandate it, it's going to take a very long time for change to happen. You mandate that there needs to be a certain percentage of women leaders in your in your senior management. I think that would make a lot of difference. But I think the other nuance I wanted to add was, I think maybe the reason change is not fast enough is because people are still not able to see the economic argument, right? The economic argument for having 50% of women in the field force today. It doesn't hurt you today. It doesn't hurt you economically today. It's not hurting your shareholders today. your shareholder returns are fine. Of course, there is now data emerging that the more diverse your workforce is, you tend to return more money to your shareholders over a longer period of time, but it's not something that's pinching you today, right? But I think that economic argument is now becoming more and more stronger. We've heard now quite a few companies, like, there are companies that are designing products for women now realizing that you cannot have a man design a product for a woman. It's not going to sell, right? Your 50% of your consumers are now women. So therefore, if you want to sell to the 50% of the population, you better understand how they're thinking. So I think the economic argument is becoming stronger and not weaker. So I see hope, therefore. The stronger it becomes, the easier it is to convince the men sitting at the top that, you just need to have representation. Otherwise, you're going to lose 50% of your consumers. So I'm hoping change will happen, but the faster way to make it happen is affirmative action.
I also think that motherhood plays a big role in all of this. What happens is when a woman goes for a leave, maternity leave, for them to come and bounce back and reach the same level as to when they had quit is really difficult. And I think every company should be mandated to have a policy towards having the mothers on board and take them back. That is when you see the maximum dropouts happen, and you are not at par with your male colleague as you were back then. I think I agree to Susan and Nithya both that there should be mandates, and also that every company should be mandated about these regulations. I think a couple of them are already there. For example, Microsoft Spring Road, and I think there are a couple more, Google Careers and etc. They're there. Amazon also has something, Amazon Rekindle also there. But I think every company has to be mandated, and hence, that fear of going back and not being able to perform and not being updated about what's happening in the world is really scary, and these things have to change.
Yeah,
sure.
I think we all agree on that. Yeah.
I think just to add on to, what Taniya was just saying, I was reading in the newspapers today that, SBI, the largest conglomerate, banking conglomerate in India, has finally struck down their recruitment policy, which said up until yesterday that women into their second trimester was unfit for recruitment. And this is 21st century India that we are talking about. So, it's still a long, long way to go, because as she rightly said, she's talked about the elephant in the room, that, unless you start looking at women as resources and not as liabilities, especially if they are in the family way. Otherwise, how do you explain that, somebody in public sector, to have a draconian rule as such that, into second semester unfit for recruitment? So struggle is real then.
Okay, we will now take a short break just to switch off our videos and relax. We are all suffering from a lot of screen fatigue. So we're going to take a very, very short break. It's 5:14. At 5:15, we'll come back just a minute or so. So you can switch off your videos, and I'll hand it over to the organizer.
Guys, until the panelists are back, like we mentioned, I hope you guys are pouring in with your questions for the guests. And as you can see on the screen, we also have one more event planned for as part of WLS 2022. And it's a competition. We'll be revealing the registration link and everything very soon. I hope you all register for it on D2C. And the prize is worth 12K up for grabs. So I just hope you guys go and register soon. Deepti ma'am, we can continue if you all are here.
Okay, yes. So I was just looking at some of the questions on the chat, and I thought we'll start taking some of the questions that our viewers are right now putting on the chat as we go from here. So this question is not directed to anyone in particular, but it talks about why do you think a sort of negative notion is attached to the word feminism when we talk about equal pay scale and equality in other work areas as well? So what are your views on this? Does it hurt the male ego is what the question is. Go ahead, yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's like quota system, started with a good cause, ended up becoming something else. Feminism also somehow it's becoming like that. Also, the word feminism, it's all about equality of both genders, right? But it says fem, right? It's not male. So even if it includes both, it includes everybody. But it still is like people think that it's just celebrating women and not like putting everybody else down. And hence I was saying that it's not about putting any gender down. It's about just equality, right? So I think the notion changed and people twist the meaning, and it somehow become more because the moment a woman stands up and starts talking about it, it's just easy to shut them up by saying, "Oh, she's another feminist," putting points again and again, the same thing. But it's such a deep-rooted thing that I think with more conversation, more people understanding the concept will make it go. Probably the word feminism need not be used, but just that we have to understand what it means and just keep doing what we have to do.
Yeah, I think there's one more question, and this is about the lack of confidence. So why do women lack confidence when talking about their achievements? How do we systematically overcome this? And what can we do when we're bringing up the next generation, what can we do to instill more confidence in this area is one of the questions on the chat. So if anyone can take it, it'll be nice.
I think I'll come in and take the latest one, which is about confidence. You grow more confident as you do more of what scares you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're scared of owning up your achievements and speaking about achievements, I mean, practice it before the mirror, practice it before a set of friends. Record yourself and then go slay it the next time you have a job interview or something of that sort. So do more of what pushes your limits. I mean, that's one thing, and and this is an atmosphere, and this is a time. I mean, which is more receptive to it, because we stand on the shoulders of giants. A lot of women before us have sort of fought that battle for us. So. I mean, I think, the present time is still not as bad as how it was earlier. Still a long way to go, but still a lot to be done as well. I just want to come in a bit on the feminism, and why it is so pejorative suddenly. I think I was in for a rude shock, when Hillary Clinton was, contesting and the presidential elections, and her entire pitch was why we should have a woman for the president of the United States as POTUS. And Madeleine Albright comes in and says that, if you don't support a woman, hell has a special place reserved for you. If as a woman you don't support a woman, hell has a special place reserved for you. And there was an entire generation of young girls who took objection to it, saying that, we are not feminists. So why is it that, the youngsters, especially the young women, refuse to or, think that, there is something negative attached to feminism? And again, a little bit of dig into history, feminism at its peak was also associated with a lot of bra burning and, bra taking off in public places and things of that sort. So I was reading up the other day, and in fact, I had made a reel about it in Instagram as well, that in the 60s, when there was a Miss America contest, a lot of things were put into the trash can, included false eyelashes, that included mops, that included, whatever was supposed to be enslaving a woman, so to speak. Incidentally, bra was not something that was put into the trash can and burnt, so to speak, because burning on public places or on the sidewalks is prohibited in most of the American cities. So from that, there is definitely a shaming. There is definitely a conspiracy to shame out there, and so, if you are going to reduce your feminism to merely about, bra burning and things of that sort, and nobody has really sort of strived hard to read up and understand what it really entails. And what Sujata rightly said, it is about somebody who believes in the equality of the sexes. It's not necessarily about one section of the population alone. And that brings me back to the first point that Nithya was stressing, that, much of the work is still pending with the men of the population. And I'm so charmed to see that, a lot of the young boys who are on social media do proudly write that, they are feminists. And we need more of those, for it to be, for the movement to be meaningful, because it cannot be our struggle alone unless the other half of the population also sort of pitches in.
Right. Nithya, do you want to add anything to this?
Not to these two questions. I think I agree with what they said. Nothing new to add.
Okay, so I think, Susan, on the same note, there's another question, and it's specifically directed to you. So the question is, how do you manage to be relevant to people across generations on your, through your handle, when you talk about gender stereotypes? So, the older ones as well as the younger ones, how do you manage to be relevant to all kind of age groups that follow you? That's the question. So if you'd like to take that.
I think the answer is, answer is what we have all been discussing, that, despite all these years, the struggles are more or less the same for each generation, so to speak. And, it's also that, I think I'm positioned in my 40s in a certain at a certain bracket where I think, and also because of my particular position with NIFT, where I'm in touch with kids who are like 17 upwards to about 20, 22, 23, roughly thereabouts. And then my own cohort of people who are in their late 30s and 40s. And so that becomes important as well to stay relevant and to know that, what the youngsters are thinking and whether their struggles are identical, and to talk to them in a language and currency which makes sense to them as well. So broadly, the struggles are more or less the same. Like, the person who asked about how to sort of own up and, confidently build confidence and talk about our achievements. That's something that, we have all faced. At least I have faced in my 20s, and, standing in 40s, I know what I should have done or what I should have been told at that point of time to do. So that's one. And then I also think that, humanity across borders is more or less the same. And, we all speak more or less the same language and face the same kind of trials and tribulations. So a little bit of empathy this side and that side makes you identify that, these are the things that are universal, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, thanks for that, Susan. And Nithya, this question is actually for you, drawing on what you said earlier. So the question is, you spoke about having mentors and especially men, but, do you think that men will stand up for women when it comes to differences in pay scale? Have you seen any situation like that? And so what kind of advice would you give to young women who want to have these mentors and who want to have discussions about gender parity and pay equity with them?
So I think in Sheryl Sandberg's famous words, I'll say lean in. There's absolutely no reason for you to sell yourself short. If anything, I think if I've had a lot of women in my team, I've had a lot of men in my team as well. I've seen that on an average, a lot of times the contribution of women tends to be far more enriching to the overall objective. I might be generalizing here. So this is again based on personal experience of people in my team. So there is no reason to pull yourself back at the negotiation table. And I don't know what's stopping us. There's nothing stopping us, right? We know that this is what is par for the course, for the kind of work and the kind of talent and capability that you bring in. There's honestly nothing stopping us. I think we should just stop talking about how do I ask this and just go ahead and ask, right? And the other thing I would say is don't shy away from asking for help either, right? I think one of the mistakes that we do is when we need help or when we need some concessions for whatever reason, we a lot of times we shy away. We just end up putting up a lot of pressure on ourselves. I would say don't do that. There's absolutely no reason to do that. I'm sure there is now enough cognizance of some of the challenges that women face and the kind of burden that you're picking up at home as well. So go and ask for help. I'm sure the organization will be more than happy to support you. So the simple answer is go and ask. There's nothing stopping you. Nobody's going to judge you for asking. So just go ask.
Right. Tanya and Sujata, there are a lot of questions on, the entrepreneurship ecosystem, like say, there is this common notion that there's nothing there that's going to hold you back. But do you also face these kind of challenges as an entrepreneur, whether it is seeking funding for your venture or whether it is coming across as being understanding of what you know about business? So how do you therefore, sense, the kind of questions that are there in someone's mind as you're talking to them and, be on top of the game as a very shrewd business person in that situation? So what are your thoughts here?
We are very kind business people. We are known as very kind people. We are not funded. We are bootstrapped, proudly so. I hope to stay that for a long time. So I would say that there are these little things that come your way that make you think, oh my God, this still happens, when people judge you, or like even now I get calls saying, Sahab ko bulaiye, and who's your boss and stuff like that. It happens, you have a co-founder expecting that it will be a male who might be looking at finance and stuff. This happens, and even when we started, then a lot of people had this question that who's going to run the show, as in who will take you seriously? You just two girls who would how would you do it? Would you need a male, like a strong male who would be just there, who would people be scared of? But yeah, we get those things. But I think via actions you can prove things wrong. Even in your company, you can be such a big leader or like a leader figure for people to understand that we are job creators, at the end of the day, and and be so proud about it. We also go through imposter syndrome. I think I somehow some days feel that, oh my God, have I even done enough? Or, I think all of us go through those phases as women, I think more so. And also, questions, very, very vague questions about, it puts you down, but only if you allow them to do so. Questions like, does your husband look at the finances? Are you not scared about things going wrong because COVID is difficult? And there are friends and families, who just ask these questions to you, and you are taken aback about why is finance a sector for men? I seriously do not understand that yet. But we are from Premier B schools, and if questions like that is thrown at us, imagine what other people face. Yeah, for sure. We work with weavers and craftsmen, right? But even there, we knew that the husband of the family or the father gets the salary. So if they come with the sari, they would take the money, even if the woman in the house probably would have managed the kid and also would be running the loom. So we made sure we open an account for the female. There are a lot of things that we can do, small things, and we are so far behind. When we talk to we all here in this seminar, we are like the top, 2 percentile of the population. Imagine a lot of people who are not privileged enough, and they go through, I don't know what all. This is just a small thing. Apart from that, when you talk about investments, and we do talk to investors because they have approached us, and we go to the table, we talk to them to understand about business, about their perspective about our business. Not that we are seeking for funding, but still we do. And we also make it a point that we don't sell ourselves any lesser. We write down pointers about why we are good, what are our strengths. We also know about our weaknesses, of course, but we sell ourselves really hard. I know that there's this innate nature of selling ourselves a little lesser, which we have, worked upon. And it can be worked upon. I think it is inherent again that the nature-wise we do not talk about our achievements much, but I think it's a practice that we need to keep going on constantly. I think a lot of I've seen men also do the same, but I think it's more in women. And also writing down about what you want to know, to be known about as a person, as an individual. Also, what do you want to be? Knowing yourself and then talking about it is really, really necessary, I think.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned the word imposter syndrome, and coincidentally, there was a question related to that also. So the question was, as you climb up the corporate ladder, as you become successful, does that imposter syndrome start vanishing away or disappearing? What do you feel? Anyone can take this question. It's open to anybody.
Nithya should go. Nithya should take this question for sure.
No, I think it's a very personal question. It's, I don't think it goes away. I think it stays, but it's a question of how you handle it, right? I think I was just reflecting on the earlier question as well, and it kind of what I'll say kind of speaks to that as well. So I was up for a job with a corporate, and we were of course talking salaries and negotiating, and so I didn't know what to ask. Right, this was an entirely different role from what I had been playing before. And it wasn't one of those step up from what I was doing. So it was not like, this is my current salary. Okay, let me ask for 15% more or 20% more. So I had a particular number in mind, but I knew that at some level I knew that I was probably selling myself short. So what I did was go and ask my husband. I said, what would you do? What is the number that you would ask for? Right? So he gave me a number, and of course I had this whole debate about, oh my God, how can I ask for this number? It's just so much higher than my current package. He said, it doesn't matter what your current package is. It's about the role and what you bring to the table and what capabilities and responsibilities that come with the job. And this is what makes sense. And you should actually benchmark yourself against similar roles out there and not to what you're being paid currently, right? So I went ahead and asked for the number, and it was a very easy conversation, right? So they said, yes, this is the number that we had in mind as well. Of course, this will work and we'll make it work. But at the end of the conversation, shaky, right? Because it was such a difficult ask for me to put myself out there and say that, here's what I think I'm worth. And I was obviously afraid that the person at the other end would not agree that, this is too much and we can't pay you so much, right? So I think what helped me was, of course, the perspective that my husband brought. And that was obviously very helpful. So I think to both questions, I would say try and just get a different perspective. To your imposter syndrome as well, I think a lot of times, like we were talking about, it tends to be women tend to suffer from this far more than men do. So get a man's perspective, right? You're surrounded by men all the time. You've got a father who probably worked at a corporate. You've got brothers. You've got husbands. You've got friends in your circle, right? So just have a conversation and see how they would think. And I think that fresh perspective is possibly all you need to, try and understand what your own worth is.
Right. Susan, do you want to take that question?
I'd say that, first of all, please do accept that, we are all human, man and woman, all of us. All of us just can't go, be hustling from 5 to sort of 12 or 1 in the morning. Doing this, doing that, and you need to rest, you need to inhale, and you will go through a gamut of emotions throughout the day, handling and talking to different sets of people, and it's all part of your journey. So so trying to sort of embrace each moment as it comes and learning from that point. And as Nithya rightly said, it's all about learning to handle a lot of it. So it's not only imposter syndrome, there are a hell lot of other things as well. I mean, if you are a parent, then, you do fight a lot of guilt as well. I mean, if you are a caregiver, if you're the primary caregiver in the family, I mean, automatically by 5 or 6, you have started planning your dinner or your supper in your head. And I've seen it in Mumbai locals, the women who are going back from their offices are actually sitting in the local trains and chopping vegetables, which they have to go and, cook in the night. So, just allow yourself, I mean, to understand that, this is part of your struggle, or this is part of your journey, and, these are your choices, and learn to handle it. And then, as many of us, many of the panelists also said that, ask for help and build up a network and a support system around you. And, and very often, I mean, you would find yourself in cities and places with not really family or blood relation, so to speak. Even there, I mean, as a single woman, you have to be consciously building a very good support system to yourself. I mean, it's, pandemic has also shown us that, I mean, how uncertain things can be. If you fall ill, whom do you fall back on? If you are stuck somewhere in the middle of the night, I mean, who is it that, you will have, who is it that you have on your speed dial, sort of thing. So you have to be, I mean, very, very conscious about these things, and no longer can you just, I mean, slide over or gloss over these questions. So embrace yourself, and I mean, and go ahead in the journey with a lot of planning is what I would say.
Right. So as, we look at the theme of this panel discussion and kind of reflect back upon what we've spoken about so long, there is this interesting line which says, how do we, from our present actions, move one step closer toward gender parity? What are we doing right now, that is correct, or that is going to take us there. So if each one of you can therefore reflect upon this, that what are we doing right, the correct thing that we are doing right now, and which is going to kind of, snowball into this, this kind of a positive change that we envisage in the future. So I would, request all the panelists to think about this, that, what are we doing right now? Because we are also doing a lot of right things today. And, we are seeing a lot of women entering the workforce and staying put and, excelling in fields, whether it is science, whether it is astronomy, they're going places. So we are doing something right. So if you can reflect upon what is it that is going to take us to the next level, that will be nice to also, kind of think about in this panel discussion.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So two things, one from a personal perspective and one from a professional perspective. So from a professional perspective, I do try and hire more women. As long as it makes sense. Right? Makes sense in the sense they have the right capability to, in terms of the role. So at CIPLA or currently at Bernstein, I have more women in my team. I've always had a majority of women in my team. So that is one thing. I'm going to react only from a personal front, right? What I can do differently, and therefore, so having more women in the team, giving them the opportunity to learn and develop, creating the right platforms for them to, increase their exposure and for them to eventually do well in life. That is something that I try and do. From a personal life perspective, I have a son and a daughter. Son is 10, daughter 6. And I think they're already getting a different perspective than I did when I was a child, right? So my mother used to be at home and my father used to work and he was the breadwinner and my mom used to do all the chores around the work. That's how I grew up. That's what I saw and that's how I grew up. But I know that my children are already seeing that, mom is also working. She's also doing Zoom calls through the day. She's also busy. She's also financially independent. If I want something, I can go and ask mom or dad. It doesn't have to be the dad who buys them the toys. I can also buy them whatever they want. So they're already seeing that things are different. And I'm also trying to make sure that in terms of contribution to, getting things done around the house, it's far more equal than what it was when I was a child. So hopefully that will start imbibing in them in the sense that, it's equal opportunity. It doesn't matter whether it's whether you're a son or a daughter or a male or a female. you go out there and do what you think you want to do, go and achieve what you want to achieve.
I think Nithya spoke in the similar lines, weavers, we have 16,000 plus weavers and craftsmen, of which 60% is female. So it was a conscious decision that, we take more female on board. The work distribution happens in a biased way. We did a bias. We actually made sure that there are women coming in. Our team, which is the 150 team, which is the corporate office, which it's also 80% female. Again, this was not, would not say it was biased, but the women fit the role. So yeah, they are here. We talk a lot about equality, and we made the system in such a way that if a girl, like a woman, wants to leave at 5:30 sharp, we understand that why she's leaving, and nobody questions. That's this little thing, right? Like it is somehow made. When I was in a corporate, I worked for 7 years. The moment a woman lifts a bag and goes, and it's like, see, she just leaves. This is a small thing, but such a big thing, because nobody would want to have a woman in the team. Like, imagine, even if you know that the person has a little more responsibility, but just that one comment, like doing, she's leaving, it's like a snowball effect. It's a small thing, but then we just make sure we don't do that in the company. Like a strict no. The same for male as well. Men in our team wear saris, and it's allowed. I think bringing this change in our workplace, and of course we are aiming to make it bigger, and hiring more people. I think when we bring about change in professional lives and constantly talk about these things, and I'm sure everyone is imbibing those habits and then just spreading the word, and also doing the same with their families, and I think it's going to change. Plus, we also do a lot of mentoring, not only for B school students, but also for school students. And we have gone out and we have partnered with the Delhi school public schools, and we speak with them. We take that opportunity any moment we get, and we speak with them about how we have reached here, and we always talk about the failures. So they understand it's not only the successes we are celebrating here, but also about talking about struggles, about struggles in not only about as women, but also as entrepreneurs when we are creating jobs, what we are facing. And I think even if like 5% of them get what we are saying and pass on the message, I think we are bringing about the change.
Susan?
Yeah, Deepti. A couple of points that I want to talk here. I think as women, let's say management leads and things like that, we should be more aware and conscious about, women sitting and leaning onto the table. And I come from the public sector, and something that has always irked me is that is the total lack of women's toilets in our government offices. You have to literally hunt for that lone women's toilet, which will be at the back of beyond, as part of the garage or as part of the records room and things of that sort. So whichever office I go, I do make it a point to sort of construct 2 or 3 women's toilets, so to speak. So that's one thing. 2, I do give loo breaks. I just don't understand how can there be marathon meetings without giving loo breaks and hydration breaks to people. So, and especially for women, this tend to be, I have sat in meetings from, 6 in the evening to, I'm not joking, 6 in the evening to 1 in the morning, which is unheard of in the government sector, but we have done that. And we used to be asked, if we would take a loo break and come back like 5 minutes late, we would be asked that, you've taken like 10 minutes sort of thing. So that's another thing. So, these sort of specific issues need to be, that sensitivity has to be built. And I'm not only doing this for the women who are there, but also for the young men who are on that table who would rise to be managers, which, who then would go on. And I hope that, they would show that sensitivity when they reach leadership positions. I do have, by virtue of the role that I have in an educational institution, I do have a lot of girls, teenaged girls. And there are a couple of things that I always tell them personally. One, you have to build your soft skills as far as conflict management is concerned, as far as your relationship, goals are concerned. These are, eventually going to be the deal breakers, identifying red flags in the relationships. And red flags in the corporate atmosphere and things of that sort. We do not talk about these things enough, so that and which makes it that young girls who are starting their journeys are a little clueless. And if there are people who have gone through the journey and have a certain perspective on it, it becomes all the more imperative that we talk about it. And there has to be those sound bites in the air from where, they can take that lead. And which was how, I got into social media as well. Instagram is something that I started off as a side when I got into NIFT, because that was the only way I could, have a ear to the ground, so to speak, to understand what the kids were thinking and what they wanted. But eventually it did snowball into something bigger, because I did realize that, the journey was relevant to the rest of the population as well. Last but not the least, professionally, I do not encourage a superwoman or a superhuman, image at all. I bring in a lot of vulnerability to my working table. I can see a lot of my teammates here in this, panel, and all of them would agree that I'm one person who cries, who shouts, who does the Samved, Ved, and Gand. I do it all to get the delivery ball ticking. So, and I think it is pretty wrong to project an image, even in front of the students, in front of the kids. It's very wrong to project that, I'm emotionless and, I'm the steel woman who does not break down at any point of time and who do not have feelings. Of course, I do get affected, and, I do bring in all my human vulnerabilities onto the table. And as leaders, I think, especially since we as a generation have suffered through this pandemic as well, we have to bring out our human side, and that there are days when even I have to get up at 5:30 and leave, as the girls were saying, or even before 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock or whenever it is. So it's all okay. Whatever you are going through, I have been through, or I am still going through it, and that strikes a certain chord. And it just doesn't have to be that the senior manager is immune to all these things. We are all in the same boat after all.
Right. And after having these deliberations, now comes another question, and it's completely going to, make us think further, because the question is really, we are thinking gender parity for coming generations, but we see the gender plateau today is not binary anymore. Are we being unfair to the rest of the genders when we are thinking only of promoting women?
I think, somebody has brought the elephant into the room then. So this is what I had said in the beginning as well, that, this is a generation which has been raised on multi-narratives. And so it's heartening that somebody has brought this. And in fact, Taniya and Sujata, when they answered one question, they also brought in this point briefly, that it's not only about two anymore. So again, a lot of initiatives were done by the government as well. Kochi Metro was one of the first government agencies to recruit a transgender. But then, society has not been very welcoming the poor. He or she, it just couldn't find an accommodation, and, the lack of support and empathy from the colleagues, all that eventually led to a resignation. So, which is why I think also affirmative action for bringing in greater inclusivity it's a much needed thing. And yes, definitely, I think, we are all guilty for always talking about it in terms of binary more. But it's also, I think, our own personal experiences, and also, the numbers again. The numbers, and the main narrative on which we have been raised. It still does take time to sort of shake ourselves out of it, and bring in alternate voices as well. So yes, I plead guilty.
I think we've spoken about it. It's not a fight with the gender or not putting somebody down. It's about fighting the same thing. I think everyone understands this, but I get it, like, because we have suffered. If something happens wrong to us, we come back with like, I'll fight you, and like it happens sometimes. It just feels like you are just fighting for women and not talking about other gender. It happens, but I think consciously you have to understand what we're doing, and hence in the beginning only I said that we are not fighting any gender. It's just the biases, it's just the notions, it's just the thing that there is already in there. It's just in the air, and we're just trying to get rid of it.
Taniya?
I don't think anything we said is very restricted to just the female gender, right? We talked about being more sensitive, we talked about being more inclusive in senior management, we talked about, uh, everything we discussed. I think it equally applies for the other genders as well. So yeah, I think we just want a more inclusive society, right? So it's natural to have the conversation that we did because we all have a personal biases given that we're all women, and the fact that we're 50% of the population, so therefore the voice is bigger. So it's natural that we have more such panel discussions about women in leadership than transgender in leadership, for example. But I think once this change happens, it's not very difficult to make the other genders feel more inclusive, right? So I think the barrier needs to be broken in terms of just accepting that what's happening now is not okay, accepting that we need a more inclusive society. So maybe becoming more inclusive, having more women in the workspace is the first step, and then everything else falls from there. It flows from there. Right?
Yeah. Anything else? Taniya, you want to add anything?
Not really, but we know that these biases exist, and I think we need to talk and act more upon what we are doing in wherever we are, in any small measure. We have painted our office pride color, and we talk about it. Society people or the elderly people around, they say that, oh, rainbow color kya hai? We tell them, we stop them, we tell them, no, it's not rainbow. What it means, we explain it. Some people accept it, saying that, oh, I know. Some people don't. They don't speak at all, and they pass. And I think sensitizing about that we are inclusive, and you also need to be talking about it. I know the percentage of the community is smaller, but I think in our own workplaces, in our own environment, because we have the capacity and hold the power to bring about any change that we can. We are that 2% of these people of the cream layer that we are privileged. We can do something about it, and we should.
Right. So I think, in addressing the last question also, we brought out a very inherent strength that women possess of being caring and compassionate. And I think, through our deliberations today, the last 1.5 hours at least, we have tried to, show that we know, these issues exist. We are willing to take them up. But we're also willing to, take along with us society, as we move towards upliftment, right? And I really, thank all my wonderful panelists for indulging in such great conversations and opening up the floor for such wonderful questions. I hope, I have done justice by addressing all the questions I think I have, because I kind of looked at the themes and picked them up. So I hope the audience also feels that they have, got their due out of this. And thank you so much again for this wonderful discussion to all our panelists. Thank you for your time. And I hope that, these discussions continue, that we continue to raise the bar higher and higher, and we continue to inspire and motivate more women as we go along. With that, I hand it over to the team. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's been fabulous talk. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us.
Deepti, wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I must say I'm very much humbled by the exhilarating discussion we had this evening. On behalf of Women in Management Club Bangalore, I would like to thank our esteemed panel speakers for taking out time on a Sunday evening to be a part of this event. Our very own Deepti ma'am for always supporting women's endeavors, and all the participants who joined in for the session. As a sign of gratitude towards our panel speakers for participating in this event, Women in Management Bangalore has made a contribution to two NGOs, namely the Center for Social Research and the Northeast Network, who are working tirelessly to create a world with gender parity. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this event. And last but not the least, please don't forget to look out for the case competition, which we are planning to have with a cash prize worth of 12K. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.